The type of communication we stress in this Introduction to Communication course is public communication. Public communication refers to any kind of communication that occurs in public and that involves the exchange of ideas that are used to make a difference, usually used to bring about change or to stabilize a change. Communication that affects the communities, the organization, and the worlds we share. I often say this is communication that is designed to make the world a better place. Maybe in big ways, maybe in small ways, but always to move us toward a better public experience. This is also what we call in communication a rhetorical communication. You'll often hear people talk about rhetorical communication, and I want to begin by telling you what that word means. You've probably heard people talk about a rhetorical question, and sometimes that is defined as, we say, oh, a rhetorical question is a question that people really don't want an answer to. Well, that's not quite right. A rhetorical question is a question that is asked in order to make a point, in order to be persuasive. A great rhetorical question that you may have heard recently is a question like, is that the kind of world you want your children to live in? Okay, they're not really looking for an answer there, you're right, but they are doing more than just empty questions. They're actually trying to make a point. They're trying to be persuasive. And that's what we mean about rhetoric. Rhetoric was first coined by Aristotle. Aristotle was a teacher and a philosopher, maybe the first teacher of communication, who first defined rhetoric as identifying the available means of persuasion in any given context. He said this: "The use of rational speech is more distinctive of a human being than the use of his limbs. A person can reap the greatest of benefits by a right use of speech." That's our commitment in this class. Now, let me explain to you how he came to realize, understand, and teach about the importance and influence of persuasive communication. Aristotle was an Athenian, and he was about 4 centuries before the Common Era, wandering around Athens, listening to his fellow citizens talk about their government, talk about their laws and their policies, and he noticed that some people were listened to very attentively, often attended by large crowds who enthusiastically supported the speaker's ideas. And Aristotle also noted that there were others who had legitimately as good ideas as the others, but who didn't draw people toward them, who didn't persuade people, who didn't compel them to accept that idea that the citizen was trying to get across. And Aristotle said, I don't think it has anything to do with the quality of the ideas. I think it has something to do with the means of expression. And that is how he came to define rhetoric as understanding the available means of persuasion in a given context or in a given set of circumstances. Today, we define rhetoric as the use of communication to coordinate human action. Anytime we use words to change our laws, our policies, our communities, our opinions, our actions, we are engaging in rhetoric. And anything that we do as speakers in order to make that change happen is a rhetorical strategy or a rhetorical technique. Okay, so here's how it looks today. Right? We've got politicians, we've got attorneys, we have advertisements, we have Twitter, we have the internet. Chances are you have been engaged in several rhetorical situations already today, either as the creator of the message or as the recipient of the message. And that brings me to the real focus of what we're talking about when we talk about a rhetorical situation. Here is a model that we've used for several years in communication studies to point out the elements that are necessary in the rhetorical situation. Let's Start up in the left-hand corner, the upper left-hand corner, and you'll see someone who looks a lot like a college student, someone who looks a lot like someone who might be taking a SpeechComm 101 course. That's our speaker, but we don't call her just a speaker. We call her an agent of change because she's going to engage in the kind of public communication that brings about change, that makes the world a better place. You'll see what she's thinking of. She's thinking of an exigence. Exigence is the topic, what it is she's going to talk about. But more than just the topic, it's a problem that she is addressing through public communication, and a problem that is marked by urgency, a problem that must be addressed. And right next to that is our audience. In the rhetorical situation, we refer to our audience as the pool of perceivers who can make her message effective. The agent of change identifies the audience who can bring about the change that she wants to see in the world. The agent of change does not take her job lightly. She prepares carefully and then engages down in the lower, the electrically charged rhetorical event when she stands behind a lectern and addresses the audience. That's the actual public speaking moment, the public speaking event. She shares her ideas and the audience takes them in and considers them. What's most exciting about this is what you see coming out of the rhetorical event, and that is change. If an agent of change has effectively informed, persuaded, encouraged, motivated, inspired her pool of perceivers, then the world never goes back to the same way it was before. Whether that's a speech in a classroom, whether that is a YouTube video, whether it is a politician addressing constituents or a spiritual leader addressing a congregation, the world changes, maybe in big ways. Maybe laws change, policies change. What's right and wrong is really hammered out. Maybe in small ways. Maybe we understand a problem differently, or we understand another perspective on that problem. Maybe a small number of people in the pool of perceivers start working to bring about that change that the agent of change has advocated. Maybe one or two people just know something that they didn't know before. But the world never goes back to the way it was before. Every rhetorical event changes the world. In some small way, in some large ways, the world is different than it was before. The world is better than it was before.